OLLAA helped to facilitate meetings between local Oromo communities in Georgia and Florida and relevant members of Congress. During these meetings, leaders from the local community had a chance to raise their concerns about the plight of the Oromo in Ethiopia to key decision makers on U.S. foreign policy, explaining to them how the human rights and humanitarian situation in Ethiopia affects them as constituents, and to ask for the senators' offices to take concrete steps towards achieving peace, accountability, and justice for the Oromo people. On Thursday, OLLAA's Advocacy team hosted a panel discussion on the fourth report in our series on the lives of Oromo refugees and migrants in Yemen, A Mother's Heartbreak. This report shifted focus to the plight of refugees who are mothers, sisters, and daughters, and the particular vulnerabilities they face as women in conflict-affected zones. The report tells the story of Dagali, a woman who was forced to flee Ethiopia after her husband was killed by Ethiopian security forces, leaving her children behind, and the dangers she faced in transit to Yemen that she still faces to this day. The featured panelists in this discussion were OLLAA's volunteers who conducted interviews with Oromo refugees and migrants in Yemen about their stories, making it possible to bring Dagali's story, as well as those of other Oromo migrants and refugees living in Yemen, to light. OLLAA published its latest Humans of Oromia report, which focused on Buruse Lemma, a young Oromo civilian who was arbitrarily detained by Ethiopian security forces in Warajarso Warada of North Showa Zone. Mr. Buruse narrowly escaped execution after he threw himself off the side of a cliff. Unfortunately, 17 others who were also detained with Mr. Buruse were killed by security forces. In its report, OLLAA highlighted relevant provisions of international human rights law that were violated in this case, including the right to life and the right to liberty. OLLAA staff met with U.S. members of Congress this week to raise their awareness of the human rights and humanitarian situation for the Oromo in Ethiopia, and to emphasize the need for the U.S. government to address the current situation throughout Ethiopia, and particularly in the southern regions. On Thursday, OLLAA's advocacy team helped to facilitate a meeting between the local Oromo community and Member of Parliament. During this call, leaders from the local community had a chance to raise their concerns about the plight of the Oromo in Ethiopia, explain to them how the human rights and humanitarian situation in Ethiopia affects them as constituents, and ask for the Australian government to provide humanitarian assistance to Oromos in need. OLLAA published its latest Humans of Oromia report this week, which focused on the story of Seome Olani. In February of 2022, Seome Olani, along with 4 members of his family, were arrested and detained by Ethiopian security forces because they believed Seome's son was a member of the OLLAA. Despite a court-issued order for their release, Seome and his family have been detained for 3 months and are not allowed to see their family. As the sole provider for his family, his children are struggling to eat and survive.